Hi, this is Zach with SuiteCG. We have a tutorial video that covers integrating SuiteCG XML output with Newtek Tricasters Advanced Edition, as well as Newtek LiveText. A couple things I want to talk about just briefly before we really get into the nuts and bolts of it. SuiteCG, if you aren't aware, does come preloaded with NDI-enabled graphics packages that are fully animated, fully customizable, that for many users may replace any other CG that you have already. I'm just going to show you some of the features here real quick. So all of our graphics are animated. We have multiple different types of graphic pages. We have stuff for sponsor recognitions, things like that. The score bug then is also customizable, where you can choose to show the clock, the tagline and the marquee, the sponsor carousel, all these other things. And then for like football that we have here, there are all sorts of other elements that you can animate within the graphic to have a very high quality, professional looking score bug, as well as other graphics to accommodate your production. And in addition, you can see these two clocks right here. These are picture-in-pictures that we get from an NDI enabled camera source that we point a camera. Actually, we typically just point a little USB webcam at the scoreboard, bring that in through the free version of Newtek Connect, and then we bring that into SuiteCG through these controls here. We crop it and then we activate it, and it replaces the manually controlled clock. So you can have a fully functional real-time clock without having to worry about it. So those are some of the features that we offer within the free included graphics packages with SuiteCG. That being said, there's really no way for you to create your own designs. So what we're going to talk about in this video is how you go about working with LiveText or TriCaster Advanced Edition to put titles right into the graphics bins of the TriCaster system, where then all of the data is still managed from SuiteCG, but you're not using any of the graphics that are provided with the internal NDI graphics. You're populating graphics templates that are stored either within LiveText standalone or the graphics bin in the TriCaster, which ultimately come from the version of LiveText that's on the TriCaster itself. So let's get to it. In SuiteCG, we have these external CG settings and controls. Right now is in the data output tab, we are writing to a local file. This is the typically the local file that you will be writing to if you're using LiveText standalone. And I have that running on this machine too. So over here in LiveText, you can see I've already created a very basic rudimentary score bug just for demonstration purposes. And we're going to use this to just kind of show off some of the basic integration features with SuiteCG. If you've never used LiveText standalone to bring in dynamic data, it's a lot easier than you may think. What we do, as I showed you in SuiteCG, we write an XML file to a specific folder location within the LiveText program files directory. And then LiveText can read that XML file automatically, and it looks for what we call key value pairs. So in that XML file, there's an XML element called game clock. And then within that element is a value, and we call that a key, and inside that key is a value. In this case, it would say 1 minute and 40 seconds. And if the clock was running, then in a second it would update to 1 minute 39 seconds. And then LiveText would recognize that the file had changed and read in the new value. And then in the LiveText page, it would say 1 minute 39 seconds. So to do that, what you do is you find your text file or your text field that you want. You right-click it. I've already linked this one, but then this menu pops up, the scroll bar, where then you can go find the game clock. And here it is right there. Now I've already linked it, so I'm not going to bother doing that again. But now if I come over to SuiteCG and start playing the clock, you can see that the clock is now running. All right, we'll stop that. We have several other text fields in here that I've already linked. We have the home and visiting team short names, and then their scores, the period. We have this marquee. I'm going to show you that, and then we've got this this down and distance, which is what we call a logical output. Before we go too much further with this, I want to come back over to SuiteCG. In this external CG settings and controls tab, we have several different sub-tabs here. We're going to take a look at the output keys. And you can see here these different groupings of types of data. Now, if you expand any of these, there's our game clock. And there's our game status, so we have the score and what period it is. And then we have all these different stats that we output as well. And then we have these logical outputs, which are used for different types of sports. And those are kind of sport-specific text fields. And then we have information for the visiting team and the home team and things like that. So all these different groupings where you can see this is the key that I was talking about that you see in the XML file, and then this is the value. So whatever you see in the keys here is what you would expect to see appear in LiveText or any third-party character generator that supports external data sources. This is the value that you would expect to see if you linked a text field up to this particular key. And then you can do so with images as well, where you tell it, hey, this is the key that I want, and then it goes and finds this image that's in the value, and then it replaces whatever image used to be there. So we've got that. So let's come on over to here to sponsors and marquee. We also support the ability to have a kind of a carousel of text strings that you can put into your scorebug, or it's not really a ticker. It doesn't scroll, it just outputs new data. So if you wanted to do something like order this game as digital download at your website, or stay tuned for the post-game show or halftime coming up, whatever you may want to do. Then in our game status, you can either have this play on a timed rotation, or you can expand this combo box and select a specific one to share at any given time. Okay, so with this marquee playing, I'm going to come over here to LiveText. And we can see I've got the marquee here, and all I have right here is a text field that just says marquee. So I'm going to right-click this. And then actually, here's the marquee text. And then whenever that marquee updates to the next one in the timed progression, it'll show it there. And then we also have this, what we call a tagline, where you could put class such and such, or class 4A championship game or something like that, or like the SuiteCG game of the week, except your company name instead of SuiteCG. Okay, so that's kind of how the text fields work. I'm going to come down here and I want to link up the down and distance. And there we go. And it still says first and 10 because that's what the current down and distance is. If I come over here to SuiteCG, I can do second and 8. Now if we come back over to LiveText, there you can see second and 8. All right, so let's come over here to these two yellow underlines underneath the team names. These are actually part of what we call a toggle image in SuiteCG, and this is what we use for ball possession. So let's come on back over to SuiteCG, and I'm going to come over here to this tab called Toggle Images. Now you can provide these images on your own. All of our different game session templates come with these toggle images and counter images preloaded as we deemed them necessary for individual sports. So in this case, all 6 toggles in SuiteCG are used in a football game. Other sports may not use all 6. So we provide these basic images, so you just have something to work with and play with, but you can certainly provide your own images to accompany whatever design you came up with for your score bug in the first place. So we have toggle 2 here. Toggle 1 is our possession, toggle 2 is our flag. I want to talk about the flag toggle first, and then we'll actually move over to toggle 1 for the possession, because it works a little bit differently how we've integrated that. So we see we have this toggle for a flag. So when there is a flag on the play, you can click this button. The user interface lights up. You can turn that timer off. It will stay on in perpetuity. But we made that interface light up as a warning to the operator in case they were to forget to turn that toggle off when play resumes. And what happens here? All toggles are by default in a false state. And if we come over to the output keys and expand the toggle images, you can see now toggle 1 is true. Again, toggle 1 works in a slightly different way how we implement it. So we'll get to that in a second, but you can see toggle 2 here is false. I'm going to run that flag again. Now you can see that the raw value is true, and then it'll go back to false here in just a second. So now down here we have the toggle 2 image and toggle 2 image alternate. If we scroll over here, we're going to see that right now the file path for those keys are the first one is false and the other is true. Now if I hit that flag button again, those two swap. And then when the timer goes down to 0, it goes back to how it was. So what we're going to do is we're going to link up the flag image in LiveText to toggle 2 image. And now you can see that that image, that little flag image, went away. And the reason is because if we come back to SuiteCG, toggle 2 is in a false state. And our false image is transparent. There's actually an image there. You can see here it's 200 pixels wide, 50 pixels in height. And then the true image is also the same. And if these weren't the same, we would actually notify you. These would turn bright red. And just to make you aware that they're not the same resolution. When working with toggles and the counter images and the team logos, we really recommend everything be the same resolution. LiveText is just going to throw in whatever resolution it thinks it's best, and it isn't always what you want it to be. So what we found is you always want to maintain the same image size when working with these toggles. So now it's in a false state. So there's an image there in LiveText. We just can't see it. So I'm going to click on the flag button, and then we come over to LiveText, and there's the flag, and now the flag has gone back to false, and it's gone. But if we bring the cursor over, we can still see that there's an image there. I want to talk about the ball possession now, because it works just a little bit differently. Same concept, but we go one other step further. So I'm going to right click that image, and I'm going to select toggle 1 image, and you'll see nothing changed because right now toggle 1 is in a true state. However, toggle 1 alternate is in a false state. So I'm going to select toggle 1 image alternate. And you can see now that that image has disappeared. Now, if we come back over to SuiteCG and swap the ball possession, you can see now that the two images have swapped status. And it'll stay that way until the ball possession changes again. All right, that's how toggles work. The timeout indicators down here, I've already linked up the visiting team. And I'm going to come back over to SuiteCG here. And we have a timeout toggle as well. I have not implemented it here, and I'm not going to. But one thing that we do with SuiteCG is you can either do like a media timeout and just click this, and that'll just activate the timeout toggle. And then the other thing you can do is each team has a timeout button here. So this is actually a macro. And if you want to learn about macros, we have a whole tutorial series of long, very, very exciting videos, believe me. They're just thrilling, that go through how to create macros and counters and toggles and basically how to create a whole sport from scratch using our generic interface. So this is actually a macro button, and it's going to activate the timeout toggle to true, and then it's also going to subtract a timeout from the visiting team. So I'm going to click that, and now if we come over to LiveText, you can see now we only see two images here, and then there's this third one here, unbeknownst to the viewers, but knownst to us, there's an invisible image there. Here's how that works. I'm going to come over to counter images, and on this, setting up counter images is exactly like toggles. You can see we have 6 counters here that operate separate from the counters that we use for tracking score by period and the other stats that have a value per period and then a total that's the sum of everything from all periods combined. The counter images here sit outside that table, and they just hold one value throughout the entire game. In football, we use only counters 8 and 9 for timeouts, and then the other 4 counters we use for down distance, ball spot, and kick attempt calculations. So we really don't need images for that. And here's how counter images are different than toggles. If I come over here to the output keys, I'm going to scroll down. And here's counter 8, image 1, image 2, image 3, all the way down to image 10. And then after that, we go to counter 9, image 1, and it repeats. So those counters each have 10 image slots associated with them. So if counter, and it goes in correspondence to the value of the counter. Those counters can go above 10, but the first 10 digits of those counters have an image associated with them. So let's take a look at these states right now. Counter 8 is in reference to the the visiting team timeouts. So down here, Tech is the visiting team, and they have 2 timeouts. So now if we look at these logical states for these counter images, the first 2 are true, and 3 through 10 are false. Now if I add a timeout back, now you can see image 1, 2, and 3 are true, 4 through 10 are false. I could take it down to 0, and now they're all false. So this allows us to track the number of timeouts via a counter, but display the number of timeouts on the score bug as images, which is pretty cool. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to come back over to LiveText, and I'm going to link these 3 images here. So I'm going to right-click the image, and then I'm going to scroll down to counter image 9, I'm sorry, counter 9, image 1, counter 9, image 2, and counter 9, image 3. Now as we go back to SuiteCG, we can assign a timeout to the home team, and now that image for the third timeout has gone. So that's how counter images work. Last image I want to talk about is we've got player headshots in SuiteCG. So let me actually quick show you how that works. We have this team details tab where you can create, save, and export, and then import later. Team profiles where you can put in whatever information you really want here. You don't have to fill out all of these if you don't intend to use them. Really, it's just the short name, the color, and then it makes sense to put a logo in, but you know, if you're covering small youth leagues and things like that, they may not have logos. So logos are not absolutely necessary. But then down here further, we have these rosters where you can create a roster profile for every player. And then when we come over to game status, then you can select a player to show in our headshot outputs. So right now I've got this James Hupp. These fun little cartoon images came from avatarmaker.com. If you want a free avatar to make of yourself, or just make up fun, cool characters. I mean, look at this guy's hair. That's just totally awesome. All these guys are just really styling. Avatarmaker.com for free avatars. So shameless plug. I have no connection with them, but giving credit where it's due. So we have over here, we have 3 different slots in our generic interface. Football only uses 2, one for a general player and then the other for the kicker. And if you expand these, we export for each slot about 11 different outputs. We got a headshot, and then I think it's 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, so 11 text fields plus the headshot. Then as you select a player, their information populates the slot. So I'm going to go back to James here. And if we come back over to LiveText, I must have already linked to this guy. Yep. So you would do it the same way. You'd right-click it and link it to the Visit Player 1 headshot key. And then this image here, I don't know if I've linked that one or not. Yes, then I link that to the V logo image or key. So whenever the team profile changes, any reference to that image, the visitor's logo, in your LiveText file will update automatically. So you don't have to change it in 10, 15, 20 different places. You just link them all to that key, load the new profile in SuiteCG, and all of those graphics update. Again, pretty cool. Okay, so that's how we do this in LiveText. This is LiveText standalone. It's running on the same machine as SuiteCG. We can also do this directly in the Tricaster graphics titles, although it works a little bit differently. So when I was linking these files to the dynamic keys by right-clicking, you're not going to see that in the version of LiveText that is included built into the Tricaster. So what you would do is you would need to create your graphic with just you'd probably just put in generic like home and away and zeros here and just a default clock value and just kind of dummy text for all this stuff. And then Now I've already done this, and the way I'm recording this session, I can't demonstrate it for you, unfortunately, because I'm recording this into my TriCaster as I do this. So what you would do, what I ended up doing is I created it here. I took this exact same project file, saved it to a thumb drive, moved it over into the version of LiveText on the TriCaster, and then I exported this page to live. So if you have questions about that, reference the TriCaster Advanced Edition user documentation for how to do that. It's fairly straightforward. You actually find it. It's in the file menu, and in fact, I think where it says export current page in all pages, this is replaced with export current page to live and export all pages to live. Pretty sure it's something like that. And then what that does is it makes it so you can import that title into the Tricaster graphics bin. And I'll show you that in just a second here. Before we can do that, we need to come back over to SuiteCG, data output, and then we actually need to change the XML file to network drive. Now, I have already done this, and in fact, before you can do this, there's something you have to do before you can just paste this directory in, and you would actually need to browse for it. But what it's going to be the machine name of the TriCaster and then data link watch. What you need to do in the TriCaster, let's head on over to the TriCaster user interface. And what you need to do before you can browse to that shared folder, you need to come up here to File and then select this Share Media Folders and Buffers. And what that will do is automatically set up a shared folder with open user permissions so that any machine on the network can access that folder to write the XML file. I guess I shouldn't say with unrestricted access. Depending on what your security settings are on the Windows operating system that's running the TriCaster, you may need to set up like a username and password or something. I don't have that on this machine, so I don't have to worry about that. Okay, so now that we're here, you can see I've already imported this, but I'm going to show you what what you would need to do to import that again. You'd come in the graphics bin, you'd come down to this little plus, click that, and when you export the page to live, what it does is it makes it appear in the name of your under titles, the name of your session, and then this would be I think that's the name of the project file associated with this session. So, and then you would just select that and click OK. I'm not going to import it a second time though. So now we've got it there. I've got it pulled up on the downstream key, and you can see that it's all blank. Except for this default headshot and then the team logo and these images here. Before we proceed, I need to go back and explain something on those images. So let's come on back over to LiveText, and I'm going to select the file bin. These are the images that I'm using in this project. It's very important that you remember this. It took me a while to figure out what I was doing wrong, and finally I did what people usually wait to do, is look at the documentation. All of these images have the word placeholder in them, but more importantly, they have the underscore in front of placeholder. I knew you had to put placeholder in the image name for TriCasters to make it a dynamic image. I did not know it had to have the underline. So I was pulling my hair out, trying to figure out what was going on. And then I did some research and realized I was missing the underscore. It does not matter from what I gather. Don't take my word for it. I wasn't going to tempt fate. I don't think underscore placeholder has to be at the beginning of the file name. I think it can be anywhere in the middle or at the end. It just has to have underscore placeholder. Make sure you have the underscore. Take my word for it. Okay, so let's head back over to the TriCaster now that I've covered that. And if we come over and click on this gear, the underscore of the image allows you to hover over the image and it will highlight it so that you can change it or you can link it to a dynamic key. Okay, if it doesn't have the underscore placeholder, it's not going to work. It's just going to be an image there. You're going to be moving the cursor over and you're not going to be able to click it and do anything with it. And you're not going to know why. So you can see all of the text fields in this editor come up with the key name with the percentage signs around it. So what you have to do here is if you click the text field, you'll see that the key is there. And actually what all you have to do is add the word output. And it should work. Yes. So now you can see over here in this graphic, it says first and 10 now. And then I come over to game clock, output. And this is partially with how we output the XML file. I don't think you would necessarily need to do this with every single XML file you bring in. It really just depends on how that XML file is structured. All right, I'm not going to link all of those, but I am going to link the visiting team timeouts, the flag, and then the player. I don't even think I'll do the player headshot. You guys will pick up on it. So to link an image to a dynamic key, you need to right click it and come down to properties. And then up here in the image source, now this is pretty cool. I really like that they did this. In the image source, you can type in the % sign, and now it's going to show you all of the keys that are available, and you can start typing the key and it'll start filtering everything out. So for this one, counter 8 is our counter that we use for the visiting team timeouts. So I'm going to type counter 8, and then I'm going to select image 1. Click OK. Right click the second one. Counter 8, image 2. And then counter 8, image 3. And then we do the same over here for counter 9. I won't worry about the, oh yeah, I might as well. Oh, if you left click, it brings up this to like browse for like something else, another image or something. So you got to make sure you right click it. And I got these text and images are pretty close, so you gotta be real careful you don't overlap things too much, especially in this editor. It's a little I mean, no fault to Newtek. It's a little rudimentary though, and you can't like move stuff around and change locations and stuff. So if you screw up, you got to close the TriCaster session, reload LiveText, and fix the template in LiveText, and then send it to live again, and then come back to TriCaster. And so it's a little rudimentary, but hey, you get it done right once, and then you don't have to worry about it again. So so our possession is toggle 1. So I'm going to select toggle 1 image. And then I'm going to come over, whoops. All right, right click and toggle 1, whoops. Toggle 1 image alternate. And then I'll select the toggle to, whoops, forgot the percentage sign, toggle to image. And now that goes away because that toggle is false. All right, close that. And then if we come over to SuiteCG and we select a flag on the play, and if we subtract 2 timeouts there, then you can see all of those update just as they did in LiveText when we were working there. So what this means is you could use SuiteCG with Tricaster Advanced Edition and not even need a copy of LiveText standalone. You would just create all of your graphics in the LiveText version that's with the Tricaster, bring it in to your session, link up everything, and then just don't lose that session. I'd probably back up to your session because I don't believe there's a way to export that title with those key linkings or key bindings to use elsewhere. So every time you import that, you have to relink everything. So don't lose your session, make backups. And then with the player headshot, I'm not going to go through that. You guys are smart, you'll figure it out. It works the same way. Visit player 1, home player 1, visit player 2, things like that. And then in SuiteCG, you select the player to occupy that slot, and then the title fills in inside of the Tricaster. So what that really means, the Tricasters, this one being the 400 series, it's got 2 graphics bins, and I think you can even put them into the DDRs. I haven't actually tried that, but that means you can create like 2, possibly 3 or 4 graphics channels and overlay into your downstream keys, or make one that's just for like player. You could do one of the MEs you could assign for like um, a player, larger player headshot, have a camera guy ISO on that player, and then you could just cut to them in that ME, and you've got a close-up of the player, your hero shot, and then their headshot and graphics and biographical data that occupies that player's slot with just one cut. So, and then you as the operator don't have to really do anything, and the SuiteCG operator just needs to make sure that the right player is occupying the slot. So there's a lot of great ways where you can use that to your advantage. You could even output the XML file to the Tricaster or to LiveText to do those additional bells and whistles, but then use the NDI feed from SuiteCG with our pre-built graphics for just the score bug. I mean, there's nothing that prohibits you from using both the NDI and the XML or CSV file output. So thank you for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Thank you.